Hello everybody, it's Foo here, and today I want to count down 10 massive missed opportunities from Pokemon Sword and Shield. These might be new Pokemon, moves, abilities, or mechanics that were introduced, but just really don't live up to their potential. They're mainly personal gripes about how these things were implemented. I'm not saying that any of these things are objectively bad. I just think that they could have been so much better or more interesting, and at the end of the day, we all just want the Pokemon to shine as much as they could do. So let's get into it. Number 10. Greedent is a really cool Pokemon. I think it's a really good evolution of a starting route Pokemon. It becomes really bulky, it's got a usable attack stat, and it's really slow, which is kind of bad, but because it's so slow, it's actually a very good speed tier for a Trick Room Pokemon. It's slower than Slowbro, for example, so it would go really, really fast in Trick Room. My issue with this Pokemon is that it's blatantly meant to be based around berries. It's got two abilities, both of which are based around berries in Gluttony, that makes you eat berries earlier, and Cheek Pouch, which recovers HP when you eat a berry. Not only that, it has a new signature move called Stuffed Cheeks, which makes you eat your berry and you get +2 defense. So all of these things add up to it being a very berry-based Pokemon. Not only that, it has berries falling out of its tail in its animations in-game. So you're obviously meant to use berries with this Pokemon because it uses them very efficiently. The issue is that berries are one-use items in battle, so you can only ever use one berry, and you can only ever use its Stuffed Cheeks move once per game, which seems really, really silly. And that's where the huge missed opportunity is, because this Pokemon doesn't learn the move Recycle. Recycle allows you to get your used item in battle back, and so you can reuse your berries. But this Pokemon does not learn Recycle, which is a tragedy, really. Greedent would be so much better if you're using a Stuffed Cheeks set, for example. Then you can get loads of defense boosts, and it could be really good with Body Press, for example, getting bulkier and also hitting harder with Body Press. Alternatively, it just gives you a load of recovery, because you could use a Citrus Berry with Cheek Pouch and Recycle, and you could just have a way to recover lots of health. I posted on Twitter about this, and someone did make a decent point to say, well, Greedent is a very greedy Pokemon, it's kind of in the name, so would it make sense for it to learn Recycle? Because surely it just eats berries, it doesn't recycle them. And I think that's a reasonable argument, apart from when you look at previous games where things like Snorlax and Alolan Muck that have the ability Gluttony, just like Greedent, are able to learn Recycle by Move Tutor. So I think there's a precedent for these Pokemon who like eating berries to have the Recycle move, and it's so annoying that Greedent doesn't have it. So that, I think, is a huge missed opportunity for Greedent. Number 9. Poltergeist is a haunted teapot, which I think is such a great premise for a Pokemon. I think the design is really, really cool, and it fits perfectly into the Pokemon Sword and Shield world. This missed opportunity doesn't really affect the viability of Poltergeist too much, but I think it's just such a glaring missed opportunity that I had to include it on this list. That is that Poltergeist, the Pokemon based around tea, does not learn Scold. You know, the move with hot water? I just can't understand how that wasn't included in Poltergeist's moveset. Poltergeist is generally more of an offensive ghost type with Shell Smash to boost its special attack and speed loads, and then it can fire off powerful attacks, and Scold would be another powerful attack that it could use. Also, it can run kind of more defensive or utility sets because it does get recovery and strength sap. So Scold could be another option, so you can run like Shadow Ball Scold to have some coverage move and also an opportunity to burn opponents that way. So it could have been a really interesting move competitively. I don't think it would have made it hugely more viable than it already is, but I just don't understand why it's not there, because it's a tea Pokemon. Number 8. Grapploct is really cool. This Pokemon is very memorable when you meet it in the game. The way that it moves towards you is very creepy, and it's just very ominous in its design in general. It also has a really cool signature move in Octolock that traps the opponent in and reduces their defense and special defense until the bulkiest of walls become the squishiest of jellies, and any attack can take them out. So that's a really interesting concept for a move. My problem with Grapploct is that it doesn't really have the stats to use this move to its best potential. It's got a good attack stat, but it's a fighting type. that's kind of the thing for fighting types. So many fighting types have much higher attack stats, so Grapploct doesn't stand out in that way. It's also pretty slow and definitely not the bulkiest Pokemon out there. While its bulk is okay, it's not the best. So I think the missed opportunity here is that Grapploct should have been a much bulkier Pokemon. It could sacrifice some of its special attack, it could even sacrifice some of its attack, I think. Because if this Pokemon was really bulky, it could go for that Octolock, survive for more turns, and then take out the opponent very easily because you've dropped their defenses so low. It doesn't really matter what Grappaloct's attack stat is because you're going to be hitting them super hard because of their low defense stat anyway. The other missed opportunity, which I think could be a bit more interesting, is it does get the Technician ability, but I don't think it uses this to the best of its ability, I guess. Because really the only moves that you would see it abusing with the Technician ability would be Power Up Punch to get attack boosts while hitting still relatively hard. Brutal Swing as having a nice dark type coverage move, although you do already get some decent ones like Darkest Lariat and Sucker Punch, and also Circle Throw, which is an interesting move that would hit quite hard and swap your opponent out. But really, if you want to hit hard, you've got Close Combat already, and as I've said, you've already got some dark type coverage moves. The two moves that I think would be really cool to see would be Mach Punch, giving it a very powerful stab priority move, but I kind of get why they didn't give it to Grapploct. A lot of Pokemon don't get Mach Punch. Grapploct seems like it should learn more like throwing type moves rather than punching, although it does learn Drain Punch, Power Up Punch, and Ice Punch, so I guess that's not too much of an argument. But the other move that I think it should definitely learn is Storm Throw. This is a base 60 power fighting type move that always critical hits, so it basically has an effective power of base 90 because you'll always get that critical hit boost. However, with the Technician ability, this will be boosted to base 90 power, and then you get the critical hit, which means that you're hitting at base 135 power, which would make it more powerful than Close Combat, which is very useful for a bulky Pokemon that doesn't want to reduce its defenses, and also you get to ignore any attack drops you might get from Intimidates, or you ignore your opponent's defense boosts too. So Storm Throw would be so cool, especially considering this Pokemon is like an octopus. So you can just imagine like Storm Throw, you know, like krakens in the sea and storms, and it throws things with its tentacles, and I just think it would be so perfect for this Pokemon, and it would make it so cool. Storm Throw and a bulkier setup so the Octolock is better are the missed opportunities for Grapploct. Number 7. Sirfetch'd is one of the coolest designs in this Pokemon game. I really like the White Knight kind of aesthetic going on here, and I don't have any complaints about Sirfetch'd. I think it's implemented pretty well. It's very strong. It has a scrappy ability, which means its fighting type attacks are just free to click. Everything takes a lot of damage, so that's really good. The problem is its signature move, Meteor Assault. This is like a fighting type Hyper Beam that hits on the physical side because it's insanely powerful, but you have to recharge after you use it, and any move that's like that is pretty useless when it comes to competitive, because if you take a Pokemon out, your opponent can just switch in something and one-hit KO you, and you can't do anything because you have to recharge. It's even worse if the opponent predicts you going for that move and can switch into a Fairy type, for example, that would resist Meteor Assault. They don't even faint and they take you out the next turn. So that's really, really risky, and you generally don't see Meteor Assault use at all. Close Combat would always be the go-to for Sirfetch'd, which is such a shame because this move looks so cool. It's got such an amazing animation. What I think could have been done is, instead of this move being like a fighting type Hyper Beam, it could have been like a fighting type Eruption or Water Spout, which also hits on the physical side. Now what these moves do, they hit both of the opponents and they are base 150 power, so the same power, but they decrease in power the less HP you have. I think this would have been a really cool thing for Meteor Assault. The animation makes it look like it could hit both of the opponents because there's kind of an explosion, and it would make Sirfetch'd into a very cool Trick Room Pokemon. You'd hit so hard, and it would be a real niche for Sirfetch'd because hitting both Pokemon with such a powerful attack is very, very nice. and because we don't have any physical attacks that do the same kind of thing as Water Spout, Eruption, or Dragon Energy, for example. So I think that would have been really, really cool for sirfetch'd, and I was slightly disappointed that Meteor Assault just goes into that category of moves that pretty much will never be seen competitively. Number 6. Now this one is a meaty one. We're going to talk about Zamasunter. Zamasunter is by far my preferred of the 2 legendary dogs added to Pokemon Sword and Shield, while Zacian is objectively the more viable Pokemon competitively because it's so fast and it's so strong with the attack boost and base 170 attack, and with great typing with Steel Fairy. Like, it's just so good. Zamasunter really got the short end of the stick here because it's slower, and while it's bulkier, its damage output isn't going to be as high. And when you're using a strong legendary Pokemon like this, you generally want it to be a damage dealer rather than a support Pokemon. How they could have rectified this very easily is by giving Zamasunter the newly introduced Body Press move, which does damage based on your defense stat. You know, Zamasunter's highest stat that gets boosted when it switches into battle. This would have given it a really powerful fighting type attack to move it. You could make Zamasunter super bulky and invest in its defense stat instead of having to invest in its attack stat to do any damage, and therefore you're kind of sticking with the whole theme of the shield Pokemon, making it super bulky. The other thing that I would mention here is that Behemoth Bash, very cool move. If, like Body Press, this did damage based off the defense stat, I think it would really, really help Zamasunter's viability. So what you could do is invest max speed, max defense. It would become an insanely bulky defensive Pokemon while still having really, really good damage output and very nice dual stab too. Steel fighting is pretty good, but instead we end up with this bulky Pokemon that either has to be really bulky or invest in its attack stat and just be nowhere near as effective as Zacian, and it really just doesn't live up to its potential. So I think Body Press and Behemoth Bash being based off defense would have really helped this Pokemon out. Number 5. Galerian Stunfisk was added in the Crown Tundra DLC. This Pokemon is pretty cool. I really like its dual typing of Poison Psychic. Its stat spread is really nice too. It's different enough from its normal variant to be interesting, slightly more powerful special attacker. And even its signature move, Eerie Spell, is pretty cool. It's unique in that it's a damage dealing move that reduces the opponent's PP. There are a lot of other Psychic type moves that compete for this move slot, things like Psychic, Psyshock, and Expanding Force. But there's still reason to use Eerie Spell if you're, for example, using like a Stally team that you want to reduce the opponent's PP. And also, Eerie Spell is a sound-based move, so if you want to use Throat Spray Galerian Stunfisk, you can do that too, which is a really interesting niche that I haven't seen explored too much. But the thing that I'm not so happy about is the ability Curious Medicine. I think that this is a big missed opportunity. What it does is when you switch in Galerian Stunfisk, Curious Medicine activates and removes all stat changes to your Pokemon. And obviously if you're just switching Galerian Stunfisk in, it probably won't have any stat changes, so it's irrelevant. Generally you won't see this at all in singles. However, in doubles, when you can remove the stat changes of your ally Pokemon, it does have some use there if you've got some stat drops. The problem is it will remove your stat increases as well, so it can be very situational and it's not very useful compared to some of Galerian Stunfisk's other abilities. This could have been so much better if Curious Medicine was like Haze, where when you switched Galerian Stunfisk in, it just removed all stat changes from your Pokemon and the opponent's Pokemon. That would have been a game changer. Much like Galarian Weezing's ability, which neutralizes all abilities on the field, Galarian Weezing in itself isn't a great Pokemon, but just by virtue of that ability, it's become super, super cool. And you see things like Regigigas being viable all of a sudden. I really think Galerian Stunfisk would have seen such a boost with this ability because it means that opponents setting up their stats is much less relevant. It means that you've got an automatic defense against max moves that reduce your stats too. So I think that that would have been a very interesting way to implement this, just to neutralize all stat changes on the board. As it stands, we won't see Curious Medicine used very much at all. Number 4. I really like Dreadnought. I think that the design based on the snapping turtle Pokemon is really neat. We have had a lot of water rock type Pokemon, so it has some stiff competition in that respect, but it does have a couple of unique things going for it. It's just they haven't been very well implemented. Firstly, it has its signature move Jaw Lock, which is a dark type move and locks you and the opponent in so that you can't switch when used. It does a decent amount of damage too, and because it's a biting move, it gets a power boost from the strong jaw ability. So it's reasonably powerful, but because you don't get same type attack bonus, that sucks quite a bit, and it's really strange to have a signature move that isn't either of the Pokemon's typings. So I think that this is a missed opportunity, because if Jaw Lock was a rock type move, it would be one of the few 100% accurate rock type moves, which immediately makes it very, very tempting to use. And having same type attack bonus and a strong jaw boost would make it incredibly powerful, automatically making Dreadnought a lot more threatening than it already is. The other unique thing that Dreadnought has going for it is its Gigantamax form. And this gives Dreadnought G-Max Stone Surge as its G-Max move. What this is a water type move that sets up Stealth Rock, and that's cool. I appreciate the idea that it's a non-rock type move setting up Stealth Rock. The issue is that Dreadnought is best used as a Swift Swim Sweeper. This is its ability that doubles its speed in rain. This is obviously a problem because its water type max move, instead of being Max Geyser, which can help it set up the rain and get that speed boost with Swift Swim, is turned into this Stone Surge, which sets up Stealth Rock. It's still a decent ability, but then when you consider the fact that its rock type max move will be Max Rockfall, which sets up Sand and removes any potential rain, that's really bad synergy, because not only do you not set up rain yourself, you actually delete any rain that's already there with the Max Rockfall. What would be much better here is if G-Max Stone Surge was a rock type move, which means that if you go for your rock type max move and you've got the Max Geyser that can set up rain again if it does disappear somehow, and all that would make it a much better rain sweeper. So it's a shame that it was implemented the other way around. So for Dreadnought, the missed opportunities: Jaw Lock should be a rock type move, making it much more powerful, and its max moves should be swapped in terms of water and rock typing. Number 3. We're going to continue with the theme of disappointing Gigantamax Pokemon. We're looking at Garbodor and Machamp and how their signature G-Max moves are really disappointing. So Max Ooze, which is what Garbodor's G-Max Malodor will replace, boosts special attack. That's a very powerful secondary effect because it means that your next attack will be much more powerful if you're using special attacks. So the power is capped at base 100. Garbodor's G-Max Malodor poisons both opponents, which is not as powerful a secondary effect, but it's still capped at the same level as Max Ooze. It doesn't become a much more powerful Gigantamax move, which I think is a shame because Garbodor is by no means a broken Pokemon. So I really think it deserved to have a very powerful G-Max Malodor, like base 140 power, which poisons both of the opponents. That would have been worth using, but as it stands, having a weak G-Max Malodor that poisons both Pokemon is really not that good. The same with Machamp. It has G-Max Chi Strike, which replaces Max Knuckle. Max Knuckle boosts your attack stat, which is very good, and it's capped at base 100 power. G-Max Chi Strike is also capped at base 100 power, increasing your critical hit chance. Though it's cool and can lead to some really interesting strategies, I don't think it's as powerful as boosting your attack stat, yet it's still capped. And for both of these Pokemon, Garbodor has the powerful Gunk Shot, which is more powerful than Gigantamax Malodor, and Machamp has Close Combat, which is more powerful than G-Max Chi Strike. So why would you want to use these Gigantamax forms? It's such a shame because I think they're two of the better looking Gigantamax forms, but they're just not really worth using. Number 2. Okay, so this isn't a specific Pokemon or move or anything. This is just the timer, which I know so many people have talked about and I'm angry about too. Basically, the battle timer in Pokemon Sword and Shield does not allow you to complete 6v6 singles battles in time, which sucks because like if you play through the entire Pokemon game, the format that you play is that you're allowed to have 6 Pokemon. And you battle your 6 Pokemon against whatever the opponent has. And that's kind of been the format since the very first Pokemon game. And the fact that you can't do that with your friends now because the timer is too restrictive is very annoying. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to say that I am definitely for bringing back a timer that allows 6v6 battles because it's very frustrating. I love doubles battles, and actually that's where most of my content lies now. But the fact that you can't do singles battles is very annoying. Before we get to number 1, if you enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe for more content. Number 1. Okay, so this is Galerian Stunfisk because I love this Pokemon so much. The design is wicked and you're introduced to it in such a cool way when you go in that cave and you see the little Pokeball and then it jumps out of the ground like a bear trap. It's just so cool. It also has a really nice stat spread for a defensive Pokemon with Steel Ground typing. Steel Ground is very good defensive typing, so I've got no complaints there at all. Where it starts to fall apart is that Galerian Stunfisk does not have very good Steel type moves at all. It's got a much higher physical attack than special attack. Yet its most powerful Steel type physical move is like Metal Claw, which is just really disappointing. It's not strong enough. You need something like Iron Head, which would have been very cool. The next thing to note is that it does have a signature move, which is Snap Trap. It's a damaging move that traps the opponent in and does damage over time, which is fine, but it's grass type, so why? Like, it's another one where it doesn't make much sense. Maybe it's for flavor, but I would have much preferred a slightly more powerful Snap Trap that is Steel type, so that it at least has a good Steel type move to deal with fairies, for example. But then we get to the elephant in the room, which is its mimicry ability. This has so much potential. I think it's a really interesting mechanic. Galerian Stunfisk changes type depending on the terrain. That means that in grassy terrain, for example, it will become a grass type. The problem is that Galerian Stunfisk does not learn any terrain setting moves, which is galling. Like, why wouldn't you allow Galerian Stunfisk to take control of its own destiny so it can determine its own typing? So annoying. Not only that, it can't abuse the terrains very well because it doesn't get many moves that like match the terrain's typing so that it would then get the same type of attack bonus for those moves. Until we get the Isle of Armor DLC, and this introduced Terrain Pulse. Terrain Pulse changes type depending on the terrain, which is fantastic, apart from that it is a special move. Why would you do this? Why would you introduce the perfect move for Galerian Stunfisk, one of the Pokemon that you just introduced this generation, so that it could always have same type attack bonus while changing typing, but make it a special move so that it still won't do any damage regardless because Stunfisk's special attack is so low. This is so galling. Why couldn't they make it like Terrain Smash or something and make it a physical move, which would be so much better for Galerian Stunfisk? All in all, it's just really frustrating because I think this Pokemon had so much potential. If there was like a Terrain Smash move and it got access to terrain setting moves, I really think that Galerian Stunfisk had an opportunity to be a very good and interesting Pokemon with good support moves like Stealth Rock, for example, and versatile damage so that you could, change your typing and change your stab moves. It just would have been really interesting, but that's not what we ended up getting. We ended up getting a Pokemon that had lackluster damage output, no way to control its typing. In fact, the opponent could abuse it against Stunfisk. So for an example, an opposing Tapu Lele could change Stunfisk to Psychic typing and then hit it with super effective Shadow Balls. Like, it's just so frustrating. So there you have it. Galerian Stunfisk gets my biggest missed opportunity award. There you have it. Thank you very much for watching this video. It's been a bit of a deep dive into ways that mechanics and Pokemon could have been better introduced into the games. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe for more content, and ding the bell. Also visit me over on Twitter at SJ900. We can have more discussions like this video. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.